So let me just tell you what we're going to cover. What is really cool at the moment is that the government has this amazing opportunity for financial support for businesses, which is not directly related to the C word. Okay, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Toby. Awesome. Okay, I will explain it to you properly then, and as simply as I can. I'll try not to use too much jargon. We live and breathe this stuff, so I know it's really easy to slip into it, but if I do, just tell me in the chat and I'll try and speak human. So as you know, any business owners, myself as well, we've all been in the same boat. There've been bursts of government support for businesses over the last couple of years. Some of them have been really well targeted and timed, some of them are not so much. And one of the things, there's two things I think that we're seeing happening, and I'd be interested if this is your experience as well. One of them is that it's pretty difficult to get skilled employees at the moment. And then alongside that, we're in this really unstable kind of economy. Like, people have kind of put themselves into a ghost lockdown, even though there's no formal lockdown, we're kind of still in one. So having some kind of 12 months security of knowing that you've got a subsidy of 50% of your wages for a year is pretty helpful right now. And we are using it ourselves, and I'll explain how. So most businesses don't realise they're eligible to claim this though. So you can get 50% of the wages for your employees, and I'll explain the conditions and the exclusions, and it's capped at $28,000 per person. So if you're paying them more than $56,000 a year, you'll only get $28,000, but only, still worth having. And it's per employee, so you can put lots of employees on this. But we'll explain the conditions, I'll explain the exclusions, I'll talk to you about the other funding. Like, once you actually get this, there's other funding that it unlocks, is linked to it, because this wage subsidy is linked to putting people on a training course, basically. And in some states, the training course will be free, in some states, it's just subsidised. However, there are other state-based wage subsidies in some states that are not training course related. So I will quickly touch on those as well, because you can basically double dip. You can have a person on the state one and the federal one and almost be not paying anything out of your own pocket in wages. It was funny when we started talking about this in the middle of last year, people were like, nah, that's too good to be true, it's not a thing. But 220,000 people signed up for it now. It says that, yeah, it is a thing. So reasons we're doing it, just quickly, it's our area of expertise. I used to own and run a RTO, a training provider, and this is linked to RTOs. We're claiming it, so I've got a good chunk of my own employees on it, and it's been very reassuring to have it through these crazy times. Of course, at the end of this, you might get us to help you. So what's in it for us is that we might be able to do this for you for a fee, but it would be risk-free. But I'm going to make sure that in this webinar, I give you enough information that you can do it yourselves if you want to. So the purpose is that you get the education, then you decide if you've got the time and energy to do it, or if you want us to organise it. And the other thing that has been my bugbear is that the big companies, I'll show you some numbers in a second, but the big companies, as usual, are claiming it all because they've got HR teams and they've got finance teams, and they keep track of what's coming out in terms of grants, and they grab it all. So I'm on a bit of a mission to make sure that we, the small to medium-sized enterprises, can get our share as well. So a quick little bit of background. You may remember way back, gosh, feels like forever ago, end of 2020, JobKeeper was coming to an end, and JobKeeper was certainly useful and it saved a lot of businesses, but there were some flaws in it, as there would be with anything that's put together quickly like that. Employees in a lot of cases got paid for not working. I know one of you has got a hospitality business. Who was that? Andy. A lot of hospitality businesses that we work with had that really difficult situation where you might have only been paying someone for 1 or 2 shifts a week, but now you've got to pay them $1,500 in JobKeeper and then hope that the government reimburses you. So those first couple of months of JobKeeper were pretty challenging. Employees were getting paid in a lot of cases for not working, and it wasn't adding any value in that, wasn't upskilling the workforce, it wasn't doing anything, it was just holding. So the government, I think, recognised that, and so in October 2020, in anticipation of JobKeeper ending, they brought in this wage subsidy for 100,000 employees. And they put $2.8 billion into it, and it was announced pretty quietly, actually. And it was for 100,000 training places, so not tradies. And you may have heard people talk about it as, wage subsidies for apprentices and tradies. But in fact, it's for anybody doing an approved course. So it could be a leadership and management course, it could be a real estate course, could be a hospitality course, could be dog grooming. Like there's all kinds of courses that you can put your staff on, either free or subsidised, and get half their wages back. Crazy, I know. Well, within October, 3/4 of it had been gobbled up by the big companies because they knew it was it. And initially it was for new workers, existing workers, anybody, didn't matter who, you could just put all your staff on it. So by the end of that month, they tightened up the criteria for existing workers. But I will explain to you in a couple of minutes what the new worker criteria is, because it could be someone that you hired last year, might still fall into the new worker category. Is this making sense so far? Hopefully it is, let me know. So by May last year, 130,000 places had been used, considering they're only supposed to be 100,000. And then there was a federal budget in May. And so they uncapped it and said, right, we're going to let you put as many people on as you want. They put in another 2.7 billion, supposedly for another 170,000 places, and said, let's run it until the end of March this year. Now, you might have noticed that today is the 24th of February. So end of March is very soon, but what makes it even tighter, and this is something I really want to get across to you today, is that there are a number of things that have to happen between now and the end of March. So you pretty much, if you're going to be actioning this, you've got to action it this week. Whether you get us to do it, whether you do it yourself, it's going to be the same, because there's a government agency in the middle of this who's got to actually set up an appointment and sign off on it. And they are getting, I talked to one in Victoria a couple of days ago, and their next available appointment's the 21st of March. I talked to one in WA, and there's 2 agencies in WA. One of them is not taking any more appointments. So I don't want to kind of get you all excited and then find that you can't get it. But as long as we do something like between now and Monday, pretty much, then I'm feeling reasonably confident that we're still going to be able to get them through in time, which is why we're doing this is the last webinar. So November last year, they tightened up the criteria again for existing workers, because they had said things like, if you want to do a certificate for in workplace health and safety, you can put any of your staff members on it. And certain chicken franchises that shall remain nameless decided to put every single teenager that works on the front counter through a certificate for in workplace health and safety and claim wage subsidies for their entire workforce. It wasn't really the intention of the thing. So they tightened up on that again and said the course has to be relevant to the person's job. So if you are an office person in a plumbing agency, a plumbing business, you can't go and do a beauty therapy course or something. You need to do an office course. So I got a question from Lilac. Is that only for an employee, or if I'm a sole trader and I'm studying at the same time as I'm working, does it apply for me? Lilac, you can't claim it for yourself, but you could hire somebody and claim it for them. So sole traders can get it for their business if you're hiring somebody or you've got employees, but you can't be getting it if you're the only person. It is broader than JobKeeper, because JobKeeper, there were a lot of, like if you are an overseas headquartered business, for example, you can still get it. If you're a sole trader, but you've got an employee, you can still get it. You don't have to be a proprietary company or anything like that. As of last month, or this month actually, a couple of weeks ago, there was a report that came out that said 27.1% of employers in Australia are now claiming this. So it has definitely gone from nobody knew about it, big companies grabbed it, to a fairly broad thing. Now, it is called Boosting Apprenticeship Commencements, if you want to Google it. What you will find though, and be careful of this, this is where people get themselves confused, is that it's got the word apprenticeship in it, which people immediately think that means a trade, like a plumber. But in the vocational training system in Australia, apprenticeship or traineeship is basically anybody who is doing a work-related course and doing some on-the-job training. So you can, in every state, and there's a different list for every state, of course, as always happens here. So in any state in Australia, for example, you could put a supervisor in any industry on a diploma of leadership and management, and they are counted as an apprentice or a trainee if you're doing it in the traineeship format, which means it's related to their work, their assessments they're doing are work tasks, and you sign off to say, yes, they are doing these things and it's working. So don't get put off by the fact that it's got the word apprenticeship in it. That's what wiped out a lot of smaller businesses at the beginning because they didn't think it was relevant to them. But pretty much any business who's got a new employee, which I'll explain in a second what that definition is, can claim this. Got to be enrolled in an approved qualification, and there are multiple lists. There's the federal government's list, and then each state government has made their own list, and blah, blah, blah. It's normal. you get $7,000 per quarter. That's the ceiling. So if you're paying them less than $14,000 a quarter, you just get half of what you're paying them. But you could have them working part-time. Like they could be working 1 day a week and getting well, no, it's got to be 2 days a week for this actually, but they could be working 2 days a week and getting $14,000 a quarter, and you'll still get $7,000 of it back. You just upload their pay slips every quarter and they refund you half of what you've got. So it's capped and it's paid over 12 months. It's paid quarterly after you pay them. So you can't use this to fix your cash flow because they won't pay you until after you've paid your staff, but at least you do know that it's coming. Question from Melanie, what if they get the restart wage subsidy? If that's the one, Ernie, that is the federal one for someone who's got a job active provider that's job hunting for them, you can't claim both. You're probably actually better off to claim this than you are to get the restart, because the restart is less than 28,000 normally, isn't it? It's usually like 10 or 20,000, I think. 10,000, yeah. So I would be claiming this 28 rather than that 10 personally. What you can claim is you can claim this, plus you can claim a state wage subsidy. You just can't claim 2 federal government ones at the same time. And I'll show you a calculation in that. Okay, thank you, Paul. Glad you got it. So this is for new employees and some of your existing employees, and they just need to enroll in an eligible qualification, and you can claim it combined with the state wage subsidy. So I'll show you a calculation in a moment how you can do that. And it's just a bit of government blurb to show you that it's a real thing and it's not just trades. See at the bottom there it says apprentices and trainees is all those other courses. Okay, so it's a win-win. Why are they doing it? Well, it's, you know, I think government has learned some lessons from COVID in Australia and around the world that, you know, we need to boost employment, we need to upskill people, we need to make sure that businesses are sustainable coming out of this. So skills become really important. So it's good for the government economy. Obviously, it's good for employers because we get a wage subsidy, plus we get to upskill our people, and it's good for the employees because they get some skills and they get a piece of paper at the end, because these are accredited qualifications. You know, they'll come out with a diploma or a certificate for or something. Question from Rajiv, can the employee be on a visa and not a permanent resident or citizen? They can be on a visa, however, and it's broader than JobKeeper in that sense, but the visa needs to be one with a P or a hash next to the category of visa that says that it is a permanent residency pathway. So if it's a visa that says they're allowed to be here for 6 months and this is the expiry date and they have to leave, then depending on the circumstances, in some states you can put them on this program for a shorter duration than the duration of their visa, and that's all right. So probably with that one, if you want to shoot me a message afterwards, I can look into your specific circumstances if you like. Is it taxed or tax-free? I'm not an accountant, I'm a chemist. However, my reading of it says that there are 2 types of government grant. There are, there's a word for it, basically there's the ones that are non-taxable and taxable. And it looks like to me, but please check with your accountant, that this is just added onto your revenue for the year and then it's taxed in the same way that the rest of your revenue is taxed. So if you're using it to catch up and break even, obviously it's not taxed, but if this is contributing to your profit, then I believe you pay tax, but don't quote me on that, check with the accountant. Okay, eligibility. So all employers, this is also what's interesting. So councils and things can do it. Federal and state government departments can't, but if you're funded by a federal or state government department, so you're a charity or whatever and you're getting government grants, that's fine. You can certainly get federal government grants generally to your organisation. It's just that you can't get 2 kinds of wage subsidy from the feds. Anywhere in Australia, any industry, any business size, as long as you've got an employee. Australian citizens, New Zealand citizens, you might be able to tell by the sophisticated way that I pronounce my vowel that I'm not from around here. New Zealand citizens have to have been here for 6 months to be eligible. So pretty much if you've got any Kiwis working for you, we're all going to have been here for 6 months because we're all locked out of New Zealand. And yeah, permanent residency or a visa that lasts longer than the course. And this is the cool thing, it is professionals, they can have a PhD. So a lot of the stuff previously was only for people who didn't have other qualifications. But for this one, they can be professionals, they can be a doctor, they can be an engineer, doesn't mean whatever. They have 20 years experience, as long as the course that you're putting them on is not a specific qualification they've got before. So we had one the other day where they had hired somebody who had a degree in marketing, but we put them on the certificate for in marketing and communications because that's the practical application of what they would have learned in their uni degree. So you can do a second qualification in the same field. We put a lot of engineering graduates through project management certificate for and diploma and things like that, because it's the practical application of what they've done in their degree previously. I'll just quickly show you some dollars, and then I will tell you what courses you can do, that sort of thing, how to do it. What is the minimum age for applicants? They have to be either finished year 10 or 17, or if they're younger than that, they can do it as a school-based traineeship. So if they're kids that are at school doing, 3 days a week of school and 2 days of a school-based traineeship, then the employer can get a wage subsidy for that school-based traineeship time. What age, Eleni, is the person that you're thinking about? And I can give you a bit more clarity on that. Okay, dollars, let's just quickly talk about dollars. 17, that's fine. Yeah, they can do it. So if you had 5 employees that were eligible, full claim, you get $140,000 for them. Worst case, if we couldn't find you any subsidized courses or any free courses, and you had to pay like full fees for all the courses and you didn't get any of the other incentives and rebates, you'd still come out with like $111,000 or so. So even if you had to pay for everything else, and I'll show you in a moment how you can make sure, because what you don't want to do obviously is sign people on a course, pay for the course, and then find that you can't get the government funding. So you can set it up so that you get the certainty that you're getting funded or even the money before you actually have to go ahead and pay for a course. But yeah, worst case, for 5 staff, you're going to come out with over 100,000. Most states have payroll tax rebates, work cover discounts, things like that. If your person doesn't have any relevant qualifications, most states will give you another $4,000 just because you're actually training them, which means if you do have to pay for the course, you can probably pay for it out of that. New South Wales, did we end up with anyone here from New South Wales? We did, didn't we? Let me just check. Roger from New South Wales. Okay, if you're in New South Wales, good news, your courses are free for your new staff. Well, I shouldn't say free. The New South government is 100% subsidising them. So you don't have to pay anything for your courses. Other states have subsidies, but they're usually not free. I'm Royce from New South Wales as well. Okay, so you guys, it's awesome. You basically get to keep all the money. Now, I did a little calculation. In Victoria, just use this one as an example, every state has some different things, but in Victoria, you can get, as well as your $28,000 from the federal government and your $4,000 from the state government, if they don't have qualifications in this area, you can get up to another $20,000 just for growing your workforce. So say you have 1 employee and you want a second one, you can hire, and there's different categories, women of certain ages, men of certain ages, single parents, migrants who've migrated in the last 4 years, all sorts of young people under 25. Pretty much Victoria will fund anybody. I think the only ones they won't fund are men between 25 and 45 who haven't been unemployed or something, but we can check the details. But for an example, you hire a 45-year-old woman to come work in your office. She doesn't have formal office qualifications, paying her, I'm just made up these numbers to make it easy, paying her $56,000 a year, whether it's full-time or part-time. You get $28,000 from the federal government. You get $20,000 from the state government as a wage subsidy, which is not, they don't have to be doing the training course. That's just, they'll just give it to you for growing your workforce. And another $4,000 for the state government from training her. So potentially that is $52,000 in subsidies, which means that person costs you $4,000 plus their entitlements. You've got to pay super and whatever on top of that. But that's pretty good. You can take a few risks and hire a few people and try a few business ideas that you've been wanting to try for a very little cost at the moment. And it is a ridiculous one-off opportunity. There's a rumor, a tiny rumor going around that the government may extend this for 3 months to get them past the election, but who knows? And I wouldn't be counting on it. So I would be assuming that it's going to finish very quickly and work on that assumption. If it does extend, we'll make sure that we let everybody who's been to the webinar know so that you know you've got more time. So yeah, potentially new employee costs you $4,000 a year. Okay, a few quick little statistics. 60% of the people that have been claimed for so far are not in traditional trades. Only 40% are in small businesses, but it's improving. 20% are over 35 years old. just at the bottom there, I was talking about the skills shortage. It's nearly 250,000 jobs being advertised on Seek the other day when I looked, and it's growing. I think January was a record ever month in the history of Seek. So we all, I don't know if you guys are finding it, but we are all finding that it is really difficult to hire somebody with all the skills that you need. So if you use like our example, we want to hire an office person and we want them to understand some basic digital marketing stuff so that we can get customers. And they just don't exist. Like you see these ads, they go, oh, I want someone who knows how to do Google and Facebook and website. And it's like, there aren't any of those people around. So what you can do though, is you could hire somebody who's just say got office experience, and then you could put them on a digital marketing qualification and fill the gaps that you need. So someone many years ago, very wise, told me, hire for attitude and aptitude and then teach the skills you need. So this is an opportunity to actually do that. The market has switched back to being, in the employee's favour, and this is a chance to go, okay, let's pick a good person with a good attitude who has got some gaps in their skills, and let's upskill them courtesy of the government. So, even if they were only 80% as productive as what the ideal person, you're only paying 50% of their wages for a year, so you're still ahead. Okay, let me just show you how you can use it for new workers and what the definition is of new workers, if that is helpful. Just move this out of the way. So the first thing is that anybody that you have already hired since the end of November. So it's basically, you've got to apply for this within 90 days of the person starting their job, if they're full-time. I'll explain the others in a moment, part-time and casual. But if they're a full-timer, you have to apply within 90 days. And you can do it historically. You don't have to do this before you hire them. So if you've hired anybody since probably the 27th of November, have a think about that now. And if you've got anyone new in your workforce, we need to get those ones cracking really quickly, because once the 90 days hit, we have to have our application in to what they call the ASIN, the government agency, by the end of the 90 days. They don't have to have their meeting, but they have to have the application. So anyone that you've already hired full-time, anybody that you've hired part-time, if they're part-time, you've got 12 months. So basically anyone that you've hired since the end of February last year, you can claim this for. Anyone that you're going, well, I had said anyone you're going to hire before the end of March, but we're not going to have time to get them through because the agencies are not going to have appointments available. So pretty much anyone they're hiring in the next week is probably a more realistic description of that. So that's just another way of saying it. Anyone that you've already hired full-time less than 90 days, part-time less than 12 months. Now, here's an interesting one. If you've got casuals that have worked for you forever, so you might have had them there for 10 years as a casual, as you've probably seen, there's some legislation or some interpretation of the legislation recently that says if you've got casuals doing the same shifts and the same duties and things over for a long time, potentially you can be made to turn them into part-time anyway, because casual is supposed to be casual, flexible. So if that happens, then you end up having to pay, holiday pay and sick pay, whatever. You could consider, to claim this, you could consider taking your casuals and making them part-time or full-time and getting 50% of their wages back, if it suited you and it suited them. So it's worth thinking about. Halves your wages bill, basically. Even if you left them on their casual rate and got half of that, then you'd get 12 months of the subsidy, and it just depends how long you think they're going to stay and what you're going to do after that. Right, any part-timers that you're upgrading to full-time that have been there for ages, you could double their hours, pay them the same amount of money, or pay the same amount of money. Doesn't matter how long they've been there. Now, those last two categories with the asterisk, you don't get free courses for them, and you don't get the $4,000 from the state government, but you still get the 50% wage subsidy. So hopefully you've got some people in those categories. These are the kind of courses, there's lots of them, but I've just chucked a quick list together of the types of things, and anything from Cert 2 in hospitality to the Diploma of Human Resource Management and everything in between. That Certificate 4 in Entrepreneurship and New Business, that's quite a good course, especially for smaller companies, gives people some pretty useful skills. Now, here's where it gets a little bit complicated. Most states have got funding or approvals for at least some of these courses, which is why these are the ones that I put on the list. But what has to happen to choose a course is that, first of all, the federal government has to say, yes, we've approved this one for the BAC program, that's the funding program for the 50%, Then the state government has to say, yes, we agree, we will let that, because some states go, nah, we don't need project management, we've already got too many project managers or whatever. So they cross things off the list. And then there's a third list, which is, or four lists really. Third list, which is these are the training providers that are approved to run the course in this format. So just because they're a registered training organisation doesn't mean they can offer courses under the BAC program. They have to be approved to run them as traineeships, apprenticeships. And then the fourth list is who are the training providers that have actually been given money to deliver this on behalf of the government, so you don't have to pay as much for your course. So if you're doing it yourself, I'll give you a list in a moment, which we can send out to you later. You'll need to check those four lists and make sure that your courses that you're choosing are on all four. And it's got to relate to their job. Now, each of the states pretty much also require that you've got somebody, which is why sole traders can't do it. You've got to have somebody in the workplace who already has those skills, not necessarily the exact piece of paper, but if you're going to put someone on a Certificate 3 in business, you've got to have some business sense to be able to know whether they're doing, their activities correctly or not. Right? If you work in education and counselling and placement sector with contracts with Proctor, yes, those would be, well, for your business, Rajiv, and for your clients as well, that would be perfect for them. So yeah, as I said, New South Wales, lots of funding from government, other states, it varies. So a couple of ideas on how you might want to use this, and some of these we've done ourselves and a lot of these our clients have done. If you've got part-timers, you can make them full-time for 12 months. You're not obliged to make them full-time forever. It could just be a 12-month full-time contract if they wanted to and you wanted to, and your wage cost would stay the same. And you get more time and get some things done. If you've got casuals, make them part-time and practically half the wage bill. This is something that we did. If you hire one person, hire another one on a 12-month contract, and the cost could be the same as if you hired the one person and you get some extra stuff done. So we launched a podcast late last year because we managed to hire a very clever young woman who is learning some skills, and she's helped put our podcast together. We wouldn't have done the podcast if we had the risk of, having to pay all the wages out of our own pocket, but it got it a start and got the momentum. So most of us have these little entrepreneurial seizures and go, oh, I've got these 17 ideas of things I'd like to do, but I don't have the time or the money. This is a way of actually getting the money and the time, courtesy of the federal government, where you can actually get people to do this stuff. And this is an interesting one. If you've stood staff down and if they left, even if they went away, had a baby, went overseas, well, probably not that, but did something, came back 6 months later, they're counted as new workers. So you can claim all the funding for them when they come back. If you're in, especially in the southern states, and you actually had staff away for 6 months because you didn't have any work for them, then they count as new workers. And the agencies have been fairly flexible. Like if they were off for 3 months and they were back for a month and they were off for another 3 months, generally they'll still put those ones through. They're kind of case by case, but they're trying to be sensible where they can. Okay, so here is what you need to do if you're going to organise it. Sorry, just before I do that, so I forgot to say about existing workers. All that stuff was new workers. There are a few examples where someone who's been full-time with you forever can still get this funding. I should make sure I tell you about that. So the official words are this. It says that they've got to do a trades-based Australian apprenticeship, which immediately makes everyone's brain go to, oh, they have to be a plumber. But there is actually a 13-page list of trades-based Australian apprenticeships. That's called Appendix E. And when you look at the explanation there, it says it's got to be a Certificate 3 or Certificate 4, and it's got to lead to basically a skills shortage area. So there are a bunch of things on that list in each state. So that's the federal government puts the list together, and then each state crosses off the ones they don't want. But there are a bunch of things on the federal lists, from cybersecurity, dog grooming, all the traditional trades, of course. But there's some IT stuff. There is workplace health and safety, if your person is actually a safety officer, not a fried chicken retailer. There is, what else is on there? Civil construction supervision. Civil construction supervision, not normal supervision. There is greenkeeping and things. So there's a bunch of quite interesting jobs on there. So we can, at the end of this, if you want to send us some information of what you do, we can have a very quick look and say yay or nay, it will be on that list. Here's some examples of the kind of stuff you can do for existing workers, all your trades. So if you've got any labourers working for you that you want to turn into a tradie, now's the time, because actually you get 50% wage subsidy for the first year, but if the course goes for more than a year, you get 10% the second year and 5% the third year. So that's worth doing. Yeah, cybersecurity, I said there's a home sustainability qualification. New South Wales and WA, this may be almost expired, but there was an office manager course focused on sustainability that they could do. Safety officers cert for a WHS, that's still probably the biggest opportunity for existing workers. But because everybody watered this one, you have to be really careful that your person is genuinely a safety officer and you've got someone there to supervise them who's got that qualification. And then all the civil supervision stuff as well. There's just some examples. There's a few more. All right, that's just an example of the bit of paper that goes to the training provider once the funding has been approved. So basically, the sequence is you have your meeting, you sign them up, then they decide whether they're going to approve it, and then they flick this document off to say, yes, it's been approved. So the good thing about that is you don't actually go paying the training provider until you're approved. Here are your steps. We will send you a copy of this presentation afterwards if you like, and if anyone particularly wants an individual slide or whatever, just let us know. But these are the things that you need to do if you want to do it yourself. So first thing is go through those course lists. So the federal government, state government, the training providers and the funded list. Look at the courses that suit your business and are approved in your state. Think about any new staff that you've taken on or existing staff that might fit in and what skills you need. Make sure they meet that, make sure you've got someone who can supervise them. Then check for the other incentives, so like the 20,000 in Victoria if you hire a new person, in Queensland if you hire a young person who's been unemployed for a fairly short time and you are not in the capital city, then you can get another potentially $20,000 for them. There's money being thrown around everywhere at the moment. It's kind of insane, but make the most of it. Choose your training provider, get the ASIN agency, get them to come and do the sign up and lodge your wage claim, and then fill out your grant applications for any of the other incentives like the 20,000 in Victoria. So we can help with most of that if you want us to, or you can work your way through it. Lewis, yes, happy to chat to you. We'll grab your phone. I'll probably get my colleague Elisa to give you a call if we can. And Khalil, yeah, we'll send you a copy. If anyone, at the end, I'll give you an email address if you want to shoot us an email, and we'll reply to it and send you anything back that you would like copies of. Now, easy bit is actually getting the subsidy. So once you've done all that stuff, then really it is literally you get an email once a quarter from the agency that signed you up saying, here's the link to the portal, here's the password, go in here and upload the pay slips. I do it myself for my people. I go and upload their pay slips. I tick a box to say, yes, they still work here. Yes, they're doing a course. No, I'm not doing anything dodgy. And then usually within 14 days, the money drops into the bank account. They're supposed to do it within a couple of weeks of the end of the quarter, but they are very, very busy, as you can imagine. So I didn't get my money that I should have gotten the second week of January. I didn't get that until the first week of February. So just bear that in mind when you are calculating your cash flow on this. But you get it, but it's a bit slower than they say it's going to be. A couple of questions that we get a lot. What if my person fails? What if my person leaves? Whatever, doesn't matter, you still get paid. Payment stops when they stop doing the course or when they leave, but you don't have to pay it back. And the other one is going to take up a lot of my time. You are going to have to give them some time to do their course, but we'll make sure that we choose training providers for you that get them to do stuff that's work related, not silly essays and things like that. And so someone needs to sign off to go, yes, Mary chaired the meeting. I've seen her chair 3 meetings and she did it fine. Let's sign her off on the meeting's subject or whatever. It's that kind of thing. For anyone who's done traineeship before, you probably understand how that works. Oh, thank you. Rachel has dropped a thing into the chat that you can, I'll come back to that and explain in a second, Rachel, actually. Let me just talk about the risk-free guarantee, how we can help if you want us to. So here's what we've discovered since we've been doing this for people since early last year. This bureaucracy is not your core business. You are busy because either for most of you, business is booming or it's busting. There's kind of nothing in between, is there, in these COVID times? I own a motel as well, and it's very quiet at the moment. It's interesting times. So you are welcome to do this yourself, but we do keep running into people whose applications get rejected because they're coded wrong or they're given bad advice. And it's not the fault of the agencies because they're hiring so many new people that they don't know the nitty-gritty detail, and they just go, oh no, you can't put this person on that course. We had one the other day where they said you can't put this person on a leadership and management course because their job title is supervisor, not manager. It's like, it's still the same thing. So they do get rejected for silly reasons, so it's kind of helpful to have someone fighting for you. So what I would suggest that you do is that you get us to do all the setup like your accountant would have done if you did JobKeeper or whatever, and then you just upload your pay slips once a quarter. We can do all the rest. You carry on with your core business. When it's approved, and only when it's approved, then you pay us 10% of the approved amount. And then you keep the rest and carry on what you're doing. Now, if you have got any kind of cash flow issues, we are not doing this to try and make life hard for people. So if you've got any kind of cash flow issues, just let us know and we will wait until you get paid, until we get paid. Like, we do not want to put you in a position where you're out of pocket doing this. So we don't need to get paid till you get paid. The training provider doesn't need to get paid until you get paid. You can pay anything you have to pay for this out of the money that you've got from the government. And then you just carry on doing what you do best, which is presumably not doing this. So just talk to us if cash flow is an issue. The best way to progress it, thank you Rachel for dropping that in, would be, we have created a little online form because we're on such a tight time frame now. We've really got to get this moving straight away. So Rachel has dropped a link into the chat for a little job form, which just gives us some basic information. It says, this is how many staff I've got. This is, you know, my new ones when they started. This is what we do. Pop some notes into the end, just telling us a little bit about your business, if you would. And it says, if we go ahead and we get some money for you, that you will pay us the 10%. And then Rachel will do a whole bunch of work on that, trying and figure out very quickly, thank you Rachel for volunteering, what's possible for you, what you're eligible for. She'll look at the 50%, but she'll also look at the different state subsidies and see if there's anything extra that we can claim for you. And if you can, now here's the thing, if you've got somebody who started almost 90 days ago full-time or almost 12 months ago part-time, give us a call as well, because we need to get onto those ones really, really quickly. But either way, we're going to get onto all of these in the next few days because we only have a few days to do them. Thank you, Lenny, for sending your form in already. Awesome. Now, we're all working from home at the moment, so I haven't put a phone number up there, but if Elisa is on the call, can you drop your number in? If not, if you just want to email Elisa on the email that's on the screen, elisaw@sagestrategy.com.au, and if you want someone to call you, just, if you don't mind, just emailing her and she will give you a call back today or tomorrow morning at the latest. And then we can get onto it. Oh, thank you, Rachel's popped Elisa's number in there. So it is 0451 733 418. So if you would like to give her a call, she can give you the overview and help you get it started. And then Rachel is the diligent analyzer of it all. So we're trying to keep Rachel kind of head down doing paperwork at the moment. So if you could start with Elisa, that would be awesome. And that is it from me. I should have paused for breath. Do we have any other questions? I'm happy to do them. Otherwise, thank you very much, everybody, for coming along. I hope it's useful. I hope we can quickly claim some funding for you and get some upskilling of your people. Shoot Elisa an email if you've got any questions at all. Actually, there were a couple of people back in the chat. Rachel, if you don't mind grabbing the details. Oh, Eleni's done the form, that's great. We've got Khalil and Lewis would like someone to call them. Maybe Rachel, if you can grab that and send it to Elisa so we don't miss them. Otherwise, thank you very much, everybody. Have an awesome day and good luck with it all. Thank you. Bye-bye. Oh, question before I go. Does South Australia have any additional funding? No, not very much at all, sadly. Little bits and pieces, probably another 4,000, but they're one of the ones that doesn't have big lumps of money yet. But watch the space. And if you want us to keep you updated on that stuff, we're happy to do that. All right, out of here. Thanks, guys.